Okay, all right. How's everybody doing? Great. All right, so we'll, obviously get another great day of preparation here, getting ready for Cleveland. Kind of a short week for us, so we got to smash everything in here into 2 days. We'll push into the red area today, a little bit of goal line and situational football here before we have our, final walkthrough tomorrow and then head out to go play the game. So short week, a lot of information to absorb. Obviously, try to learn their team on a short basis here. So they've got a lot of great players here, offensively and defensively, that we got to get a handle on. And like I mentioned yesterday, really good coaching. I think they've done a really great job here with getting their players to improve through the course of preseason and really taking a look at some of their players from last year. I think they've been coached up really well. So be a great challenge for us. Again, it's a huge opportunity for guys on our team, certainly to go out and perform. I think I had mentioned before, I think special teams is going to be a big part of what we got to see here Thursday night and getting those live reps of special teams at the speed that comes across at. So it'll be good. It'll be a lot of good work for the guys, and we're looking forward to it.
What's something you said right there, because I know for the third preseason game, there's always a little bit of maybe scheming and learning personnel. You're doing that for this game too. Is that a departure for you? Why would you maybe choose to do that versus
As far as what?
Like learning, like you said, studying a lot of personnel,
Sure.
knowing personnel. Like a lot of times, it would seem other coaches don't necessarily do that. I was just wondering if that was something you've always done, or
I think anytime we play a game, I think it's really important that you do study the opponent and their personnel and their schemes. And we're obviously trying to put our players in the best situation to go out and perform well. And I think if we don't do that and we don't teach it appropriately and attack the game the same that we always do, then we're kind of doing a disservice to those guys that have to go out and perform on the field. And then we're obviously in an evaluation mode. So we want to make sure we give them every opportunity that they can to go produce and perform. And, the best way to do that is to, approach it and attack it like it's every other game that we do and not change philosophy as far as that's concerned.
are you game planning for this, or is it more just?
We game plan for everything, as far as those situations. You have to have an element of understanding, what the opponent does and what do they do well and how do they do it. You don't want anybody out there in the game just kind of playing, blindly and not knowing, understanding what's going on from the opponent. Yep.
This is about Matt Patricia. You've been with other kickers who've been good for a long period of time. Is there a common thread that keeps these guys at the top of their game for extended periods of time?
Yeah, good question. I haven't really compared them to some of the other ones, but just in general with Prater, I think his approach, is unbelievable. The way that he goes at it every single day. He's very competitive with himself, which sometimes as a kicker is really what you have to be. You're not necessarily out there competing directly with an opponent that's lining up across from you, but from a standpoint of how he, approaches every single day of preparation is with extreme competitive nature in and amongst himself to be, perfect, which is great. He wants to be right all the time, and he's consistent. He's the same guy. And for someone that's been doing it as long as he has at that level, you love to see that, that desire, that, wantingness to be great all the time that's awesome.
Ryan Pope seemed like a pretty coveted commodity as an undrafted free agent. He hasn't seen a whole lot of reps in your 3 preseason games. Just wondering where he is at in his offseason development with your program, and could he see more playing time in this 4th game?
Yeah, certainly, that's, part of the option is to get some more here as we work into, game number 4 of the preseason. I think with all those guys out there, the competition's been, it's been pretty thick at offensive line, and those guys are trying to earn as many reps as possible. So he's just got to continue to improve. I would say certainly from a situation of college to our level, there's a lot of learning that is involved with that, and moving some guys around that we needed to see. Also, I would say just, hard to, to be out there for every snap. So we're trying to do everything we can to get him those opportunities.
Can this 4th preseason game be a make or break? I know it's the full body of work from the beginning all the way to this point, but can you just talk about how important this can be for some guys really fighting to make a team?
Yeah, absolutely. And it is. I don't want to say it's make or break because you do want to check and look at the full body, like you said, but there are just guys that come out and will come out of this game that have just performed at a really high level that you have seen, kind of that complete improvement all the way through, and you say, all right, well, this is something we really got to think about. We got to talk about. We got to look at what's the role, what's the situation, how much value do they add to the team. And a lot of times it's certainly the guys that are on our team, but I think there's coaches and staffs and, scouts all the way across the league that are going to look at all these games very, quickly to understand, okay, hey, is there somebody out there that really performed well? And, is it someone we need to take a look at from that standpoint?
Coaching, can you remember a guy that really jumped up?
It's a good question. I got asked that question yesterday too, and I was trying to remember off the top of my head. I don't really want to go too far back with it, but I was just saying, even just last year, some of the guys that I thought played well that were on our team, like Mike Ford and guys like that, and then even off the roster, D Virgin is someone that sticks out in my head. I just remember distinctly, watching him play and seeing something that we really liked that we thought we could use.
Matt, is this one of the more hectic 3 or 4 day periods that you guys face throughout the year when you look at cutting your roster, considering over 1,000 players that are out there, and then you're also flipping the page and getting ready for the regular season?
Yeah, pretty busy. So we'll be tied up here for a little while. No, it is. I mean, there's a lot going on. Seems like there's a lot going on all the time. So just kind of what hats you're wearing at what particular moments. But it is. There's a lot of players out there that that you're going to take a look at. I think the first and foremost thing is we got to do the best we can with our roster. I think that's the biggest thing for us, is just making sure from a priority standpoint, we're evaluating our roster properly. And that's the biggest part of training camp. I just, like I've said before, I don't think it's about scheme. I don't think it's about, trying to design something that's going to carry us through the entire season from the X's and O's standpoint. It's really just understanding, who are the guys on our team? How do they help us? What do they do well? What are their deficiencies and how do we improve those, and make the decision on that going forward. When that's done, we'll go through and evaluate and decide if there are areas of need on the team that we need to then go back through the players that have been released and see if there are situations where maybe we can fill a need from somebody else or another roster. Certainly different teams, we try to track where positions may be deeper in one team as compared to the next, and guys that we think maybe will be out there. We try to get ahead of some of that if we can and see what that looks like, so that it's not a complete scramble when all of it, hits the wire. But that's a big part of it. And then underlying all of that is, we're going to have to turn the page and get ready for Arizona here really quick. So it's busy. You just try to stay in front of it. But the biggest thing for us is really just worrying about our roster right now.
Preseason game number 4, Coach. The puzzle's 53 pieces. Again, going into preseason game number 4, how close is the puzzle being put together of those 53?
Good question. I don't know. We'll, you don't want to sit here and put any numbers behind it because we really don't know. Things still have to take place here tonight and through the weekend. But I think you have a good idea on a lot of the guys of where we think we are, but there's still a lot of, opportunity available. And that's why I do think this week is really important. I think it's great opportunity for those guys to just increase their value, and go out and show us that they can do a good week of work, which is where we're in the middle of right now. These count. These days are important for us to evaluate. Kind of going back to your question, Mike, before we were saying about game planning. Like, it's part of the process is, can these guys learn information on a normal Wednesday, a normal Thursday, and then apply it in the game? That's important for us to understand because we don't have opportunity to go back and redo the information. It's got to be right on that day. So part of the process of giving the players the information we do is to see how they learn, how they process it, and they apply it in practice, and then does it show up in the game? So all of that's really critical to that. And, all the pieces will come together when they do. And what's interesting, I think, also about this weekend, Dan, to go back to kind of your question, is just it's a lot that goes on this weekend, but it's not final. There's a lot of other processes and transitions and roster movement that's going to go on for even a couple, days after, and then obviously continue through the season. So it's always kind of ongoing. It's just the biggest, I would say, point where we have a lot of names out there, similar to that. Carlos, go ahead.
On your defense, you some of the players have compared to learning your defense to learning language, and they sense a better, proficiency, whatever, this year. Have you noticed that among the players, and would you naturally expect your defense to take a little bit of a jump this year?
That's probably a pretty good comparison, because I do think there is a lot of vernacular that goes along with it, and it is like learning a language. I think, especially guys who have played a lot of football, the concepts really never really change that much, but how we use the terminology with it might change. And once you really have a great grasp of that, I think everything else comes a lot faster. So the concepts and the learning and where your assignment is and what you're supposed to do, because there's a lot defensively that takes place on the field, communication-wise. Sometimes it's one word, sometimes it's a couple words that will tell everybody what to do. And the longer it takes to process that information, then the slower you play on defense. And where defense, you want to be able to react, play quickly, play fast, and so that, naturally defensive players are aggressive, but they can only do that if they play fast. If they're playing slow, then it just takes some of that aggressiveness away. So that's a big part of it, is just that conceptual learning and understanding. Certainly we hope that, everything is better than what it was last year with the defense. And there's a lot of new pieces, though. There's a lot of new parts, and it'll be something that has to develop and grow for this year. I truly believe that with the game of football and the way that things are set up now, every year is a new year from that aspect of it, from a scheme standpoint. I think you start over. There's carryover, certainly, for some of the guys, but because all the pieces move and the roster changes, you really treat it as kind of just you start over and see where it goes. Hopefully it just grows faster than what it did last year.
Baker Mayfield got a lot of buzz around him. When you watch him on film, what kind of challenges does he present for NFL defense?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, great quarterback and someone that, we saw a little bit last year too, but just from a standpoint of his athleticism, I think that's something that obviously jumps out right away. His arm strength, all of that is from the athletic side of it is really very, very good. That creates a lot of problems. The thing where I think he's grown is the mental part of the game. I think, again, Freddie and Coach Monken have done a great job of just developing his overall knowledge of the game of the NFL. I think there's certain coverages and things like that you see in college. But once you start adding in, great players, whether it's Beckham or Landry, you're going to get different coverage looks in the back end because of who the players are that are on the field. That doesn't necessarily happen in college as much. And his ability to process that information, see what it is, and then find the right reads and go to the right players based on that is where I think he's made the biggest jumps. And that's where, again, for a quarterback, the mental part of the game, the better or smarter you can be as a quarterback, the slower the game goes for you, and you can be more aggressive. And I think that's the part where, it's going to be a big challenge.
You said cram session of a week. Weird time to add players to your roster. You had a quarterback today, tough position to learn. What is the plan there with Luis, just to get him acclimated, and what's his future here?
Yeah, someone that we've actually tracked here for a little while and had kind of on our radar. So thought we don't have a lot of time left in preseason, so if we're going to have a chance to take a look at somebody, we got to do it and just make the decision, which we did. And he'll be thrown into the mix. We got a great practice today. We'll see what it looks like here on Thursday night. But there's, different things down the road that, you can do with players like that and have opportunities. So you want to try to get as much information as you can and be around them as long as possible while you have that opportunity, maybe as opposed to a different situation where you bring them in and, you might have them for a couple of days and not really have an opportunity to get to know them as well.